Newsmaker Sunday with Fox 10's John Hook.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Sunday. My guest this week is former Phoenix Police Chief Daniel Garcia, who, as you know, 3.5 weeks ago was fired, quote, for insubordination. Danny Garcia did 2.5 years, and he's our guest on Newsmaker Sunday. Good to see you.
John, good to see you.
How does it feel to not put on a uniform for 2.5 weeks?
Well, it's very different. You know, I'm looking forward to enjoying my time with my family, but without a doubt, I'll miss the service of police work. It's in my heart.
Bottom line, what happened? You got up against the union, didn't you?
Yes,
That's
we did.
really the bottom line.
I think so.
And in the end, did the union win?
You know what? I don't consider this a victory for them. I consider it a loss for the citizens of Phoenix. I really do. I came here with a very strong mantra, a foundation for policing, what I call policing with a purpose. And I believe very strongly on that: democracy, justice, spirit of service, fundamental fairness, protecting people from harm. These were the principles that I believed in. But apparently the city of Phoenix wants to go the Phoenix way, which is policing for the union.
When we talked earlier this week, you gave me a hierarchy of how you felt this should run.
Right.
And then there's a hierarchy that you felt the city wants it run. Can you lay that out for me?
I believe that the chief of police should be responsible to two groups: our citizens and our officers.
Okay.
And the union should fall underneath those. Our officers clearly understand unconditional police service in the city of Phoenix. They do a fantastic job. They get out there and they police for the citizens of Phoenix. I'm very proud of the men and women of the Phoenix Police Department. But the citizens have to have a police department who is there to serve them. And I believe my officers understand the unconditional service part of policing. The police union, in my opinion, is about conditional police service. They'll give you police service, but they want conditions as a reward for that.
So basically what you're saying is, you're the boss, you're on top, you answer to the citizens and the officers. But you're saying what the city manager was kind of saying is, you're going to co-manage the Phoenix Police Department with the union.
The city manager, I believe, wants a parity between the police chief and the police union. And in my opinion, there's no room for that. Anytime you start mixing politics with critical incident management and public safety issues, that's a recipe for disaster.
I asked you also this week, is there any way you could have navigated these waters with the union in a more productive way so it wouldn't have ended like this?
You know, in fact, I did, John. There was a number of things that we did collaborate on, that they did have dialogue on, that I actually worked with the union on. For example, the shift work, 10 hours versus 8-hour shifts.
Let's hold on for a second there. There was a discussion about the union wanted 4 10-hour shifts for the officers, right?
10-hour shifts. There were
4 10-hour shifts. They'd have 3 days off.
Correct.
You wanted to keep it 5 8-hour shifts.
Correct.
Why? What's the advantage?
The 8-hour shifts are much more productive in law enforcement. I think you have your officers aren't worn out from a 10-hour shift. That's a long hours of policing. But the fact is, the Phoenix Police Department had been policing on 10-hour shifts for many, many years, maybe going back as far as 20 years. When I sat down with the officers and had dialogue with them, one thing they gave me was a commitment to continue policing at 10-hour shifts and be more productive. And you know what? I love when officers make a commitment. I went with that. And sure enough, they gave me a crime reduction that year.
You spent 33 years with Dallas PD.
34, actually.
34 years. You rose from a street cop to
Assistant chief.
Assistant chief. What did you learn in that time that was either applicable or not applicable to the Phoenix experience?
Well, one of the things that I think was important in understanding was that police officers are pretty much the same in every city, but the cultures of the organization are different. And when you come in, you have to ask yourself 2 questions. Before you make a decision, what's the history of the issue and what's the culture of this organization? And then you're going to make a decision whether you're going to change the culture or you're going to keep the culture intact and not make a decision at all.
Now, when you came here, you were brought in to change things.
I was a change
David Cavazos, the former city manager, who's been blasted for double dipping and all of the pension stuff, he's the guy who hired you. When he hired you, what did he tell you, what he wanted from Danny Garcia?
Well, we both agreed that I was going to come into this organization and I was going to run the Phoenix Police Department. And for 2.5 years, I did. When I saw Mr. Cavazos exit, I saw a clear change in the direction from the city manager himself as to how this department was going to run in the future.
He brings you in, and at that point, you are the first, am I correct? You're the first outsider
Correct.
to be hired as Phoenix Police Chief in the history of the organization.
That's correct.
Why, first of all, why did you ever get an answer why culturally that has been the case? Why have we always done it from within?
You know, I would have to give the department credit. You know, the Phoenix Police Department is an outstanding organization, and the citizens of Phoenix are lucky to have the men and women of the Phoenix Police Department. I like the aspect of allowing officers to rise to the rank, to the rank of police chief. But every once in a while, I think it happens that you do need a new perspective. You have to have someone come in.
Why did Cavazos think that new perspective was necessary?
I think Cavazos also realized that the police unions had taken over too much power in this city, and I think he wanted to have a police chief that could stand up to them and explain the direction of the organization. How are we going to police? What are going to be our principles? What are going to be our foundations? What are going to be our purpose in policing? And move us forward.
Going forward now, do you suspect that they will go back to the older playbook of we're going to hire from within here to just kind of calm the waters?
It's very possible. And you know what? We've got some great candidates in the Phoenix Police Department.
People who work for you?
Absolutely.
Joe Yonner is one of them.
He's a great chief.
You like him a great deal?
Very much.
Okay, I want to take you back. We're going to go to tape number 2. This is the day that the firing happened, where you were let go. You called a press conference, so I just want to set it up briefly. You called a press conference. Why?
You know, to me, this was a public safety issue. I wanted the citizens of Phoenix to know where we were in the relation to our policing for the city. I wanted the citizens of Phoenix to understand how the union was using a tactic to terminate the police chief. And I wanted people to understand the issues that we were facing in front of us, the budget shortfalls, the low staffing of approximately over 600 officers. Mm-hmm. And I wanted the citizens of Phoenix to understand that there was a city charter violation that in relation to Councilmember DeCiccio, that nobody seemed to care about.
Where he called for your resignation.
Correct.
That's a violation of charter.
Violation of charter.
He had been a guy who's fought the unions on a lot of stuff. What happened?
You know, I don't know.
You're fighting the union then, and then suddenly he calls for your ouster.
Yeah, and to me, this is an issue of me fighting the union. It was me doing the best I could for, the two groups that I believe we report to, first and foremost, the citizens of Phoenix and the Phoenix police officers.
Let's go to that tape number 2.
It's the press conference that cost the now former Phoenix police chief his job.
I'm requesting a 2-year contract by the city of Phoenix as soon as possible.
City manager Ed Zerker says he told David Garcia not to hold a press conference.
We don't hold press conferences without communication between departments and the city manager's office. That communication did not happen.
The city manager is saying the dismissal was not based on performance, but rather insubordination. Mayor Greg Stanton agrees.
Today was a direct act of insubordination by the police chief against the city management. That's not acceptable. It's not acceptable by me as mayor.
The police union Garcia has been publicly battling held their own conference to respond to Garcia's. And while it was happening, cameras rolled as they learned Garcia was out.
If in fact he's been let go, and I have no reason to doubt you, I think that is a good decision by the city manager.
The termination just as the union worked to deliver a no confidence vote for Garcia.
He never did grasp our style of doing business here, and you know, we are not a autonomous emperor type setup in Phoenix.
City Councilman Sal DeCiccio, who has been publicly calling for Garcia's termination, today celebrated the news.
Well, I think this is a great opportunity for the city of Phoenix. I mean, you had a police chief that had nothing but problems in that department. We had morale problems there. We had a situation where police officers were feeling that he was being vindictive.
When you watch that back, how do you feel?
You know what, it disturbs me of all the terms being used, thrown out there to, in my opinion, condone their actions. The fact is I wasn't terminated for insubordination. I was terminated in the line of duty. I was doing my job. I had a responsibility of public trust for my community, and I had a responsibility of transparency to the community of Phoenix. I wanted them to understand what was going on in this department, and that this department was being run very well.
So you were at a point where you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what you felt that it was time, you were at a crossroads.
I was at a crossroads.
Who's going to run the department? Is that
Yes,
one?
no,
That's
absolutely.
A.
No, that's true.
Then B, if you are going to run the department, you need to lay out some assurances that you're going to be here. Say, okay, Garcia's our guy. We're going to do a 2-year contract, and then everybody knows where they stand.
That's correct. Look, when I asked for a 2-year contract, I wasn't asking for additional monies. I wasn't asking for a pension being secured. The fact is that I'd have to be here 10 years to secure a pension. That was not on the agenda. I came here to police for the citizens of Phoenix and the men and women of the Phoenix Police Department. That's where my commitment was, 100% every single day, 365 days of the year.
So you threw a gauntlet down to the city manager saying, look, if I'm your guy, we need to get this done so that everybody knows who's the boss. Is that basically it?
I gave them a choice. And I expected them to be much more professional than what they were.
So it was not career suicide, as some have said.
No,
that when you did
absolutely
that
not.
press conference, you knew exactly what was going to happen, that you were going to get fired.
No, absolutely not. No, I would never have presented the contract issue if I was expecting to get fired. And I was disappointed to hear things like, this isn't the Phoenix way. Well, if the Phoenix way is not being transparent and open to the public, well, then we've got some issues here.
Okay, let's go back to something, because this pension thing has been a real issue. Obviously, we saw it with 487. This has been a big deal. In your case, let's circle back again. When you got hired, the rule changed. You had to be here 5 years to be eligible for the pension before. But
Correct.
right before you got hired, it changed.
It sure did. It
To
changed,
10 years.
Yes, it did. It changed in January of 2012. I came on in April of 2012. So I knew that this was not a pension issue for me.
You were not going to get a pension.
That is
there was
correct.
no big golden parachute for Daniel Garcia.
Absolutely not.
So you came here, why?
I love policing, John. I love doing police work, and I wanted to extend my career and do police work for the 6th largest city in the United States. And I did it. I did it for 3 years, and we were successful in 3 years. We had 3 years of crime reductions, 3 years of coming in under budget, and 3 years of the men and women of the Phoenix Police Department going out there and understanding what their purpose was in policing.
Let's run tape number 3. This is City Manager Ed Zerker after, I guess, calling for your departure right here. Here it is.
I asked the chief to work collaboratively and cooperatively and respectfully, and to communicate with me and my office. That is the Phoenix way. He did not do that. We cannot expect our police officers to follow orders if the chief cannot do the same and lead by example. Today, the police chief disobeyed a direct order given to him by me through his supervisor, Assistant City Manager Milton Dahoney. As a result, I fired him. We have a big job in front of us right now, keeping our residents safe and working to reestablish trust between the community and our police department. I gave Chief Garcia my full support, and I'm disappointed in his choices. He's a good man, but I'm disappointed in his choices.
Reaction?
Again, I'm disappointed in his choice of words. You know, when I took an oath of office for the city of Phoenix to be a police chief and a police officer, I meant it. I stand behind that. This is an issue of being transparent. This is an issue of public trust. And every issue I address in that press conference, the community needs to know about.
You wanted the community to know about this crossroads with who's running the department, the
Absolutely.
union or the chief.
Absolutely, sir.
Is that it?
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
There's a number of things that I wanted to shine a light on. The aspect of the union trying to terminate the police chief, like they did the previous chief before me.
Chief Harris.
Absolutely. And I wanted people to understand that there was some issues with our civil service board. There was an issue with a council member who violated the city charter. And that, again, nobody seems to care about that issue. But I wanted the city of Phoenix to understand, first and foremost, where this department stood as a police department. We've had 3 great years of great policing, and I want to thank the men and women of the Phoenix Police Department because they did that job.
Any regrets?
None whatsoever, John. I tell you what, I love the Phoenix Police Department. This is a great city. I hope that there's some things that can be learned and move forward from this issue. This is not about Danny Garcia. Look, I'm very comfortable in who I am. I'm very comfortable in the policing job that I did. I want to thank the Phoenix Police Department for giving me the opportunity to do this, and especially David Cavazos for allowing me to be chief of police here. It was a great ride.
Before we take a break, what is it that you want the public to know? What is it you're trying to tell them?
I want them to understand that there needs to be transparency in a police department, and for me, that was the main goal: public service and transparency. honoring the oath of office, and making sure our community understood where we always stood. As
But transparency, break that down. Break down the code of that for me.
When there's issues that are important to the police department, like the civil service and how they're bringing back officers that I will tell you have no business being police officers after I've terminated
The Civil
them.
Service Board determines fate of people you put disciplinary action
They
on.
have the final say. And I think that's, I saw some real issues with the Civil Service Board. But again, the main thing was the police union. I'm about high policing standards. And as I told the city of Phoenix, if I'm to be hired or terminated for upholding the city of Phoenix to the highest policing standards, that's a disgrace to the city. I'm sorry.
We're back with former Chief Daniel Garcia, Phoenix Police Chief for 2.5 years, fired 3.5 weeks ago. Back with Danny Garcia in a moment. Back with former Phoenix Police Chief Daniel Garcia. When you got crosswise with the union, it really came to a head over this issue of an officer, Craig Tiger, who served the department, and you fired him when he had a DUI.
Right.
He then claimed to have post-traumatic stress disorder. Is that kind
Correct.
of the timeline?
Correct.
And upon telling you that, you still continued with the firing.
Yes, the issue of post-traumatic stress syndrome was brought to me after the fact, after the arrest. If he had been diagnosed prior to the arrest, I could have worked with that issue.
Let's go back. I want to show tape number 1 briefly here. This is the issue of Officer Craig Tiger, who sadly took his own life.
Officer Craig Tiger took his own life on the 2nd anniversary of a fatal shooting of a suspect, a shooting that eventually led to PTSD. He was fired from the Phoenix Police Department for DUI, and while asking to keep his job, he revealed his PTSD diagnosis to the Phoenix Police Chief. PTSD can often lead to drinking problems.
I don't know how anybody could sit and listen to Officer Tiger's story and not have empathy and compassion. That is a quality of leadership. It is void in this individual.
The unions representing both supervisors and rank-and-file officers blasted the chief's leadership style and are now calling for a vote of no confidence.
In the past few months, I've only received one phone call in support of the chief, as opposed to the dozens and dozens of, when are you going to get rid of this guy?
The unions say the chief and the department have not done enough to care for officers with PTSD. And in a memo, the Phoenix city manager says he will immediately convene a panel to look into the issue and recommend any changes.
Leaders inspire people to follow. Absent that, you have a dictatorship.
Joe Clure was in the room when Craig Tiger asked to keep his job, hoping for any other option but termination.
We had those options. We've done those options. Why not do it for Officer Tiger, who so clearly suffered from an on-the-job injury, and the chief didn't care?
This is something you came in.
Yeah. Your reaction to that piece?
Again, I will tell you that the issue of post-traumatic stress syndrome was brought to me after the fact of the arrest.
Did you think it was a cover story?
No, I wouldn't go that far. But the fact is that I just didn't believe that at that point that I could keep him on as a police officer for the city of Phoenix. You know, there is an issue of public trust. And if you're going to allow an officer to be a police officer, he's got to be able to perform the job.
A DUI was a deal breaker for you.
Absolutely. But more so is the fact that I just didn't see him being able to perform that job. And I would go even as far as to say is that Craig Tiger did not appeal his termination, and Joe Clure represented him that day in that hearing, and he didn't appeal it either.
They never appealed it, so it never went to the Civil Service Board, the board that you have blasted as being...
Correct. So in essence, they concurred with my decision.
Any regrets on that one?
You know what? You always look back and look at these types of issues and second guess yourself. I think that's a responsible thing to do, to determine whether or not you make the right decision. I feel very strongly that I did the right decision for the citizens of Phoenix.
That was kind of the beginning of the end, right? That's when the vote of no confidence began.
Well,
we saw the beginnings of that there. It really pivoted off the Craig Tiger. That was the final straw.
I will tell you, John, that I'm convinced that the union used his death for their gain, for their purpose.
Now, as we saw people putting ballots in that box, you have made this charge this week that the votes weren't there.
They don't have the votes. They still haven't produced the votes. They don't have a vote of no confidence.
So what is the public to take from all of this? When they're watching this spectacle go on and they're under the assumption that the chief is a dictator and the officers want him out, you're saying that there was a bunch of theater there, or as you'd say out of Texas, all hat and no cattle?
That's exactly right. They were branding the mantra to terminate the chief. The issue of dictatorship, come on, really? Look, we're talking about professional police officers. These aren't the lost boys, okay? They don't need a mother, they needed a police chief. I came here, I was a strong police chief. I gave my officers what they need: direction, purpose, and principles, and a passion to move forward. And they produced. 3 years in a row, we had crime reduction. The men and women of the Phoenix Police Department know how to do police work. And to sit here and talk about them like they can't do the job or that I'm too tough on them is just ridiculous.
Finally, did you ever sit down with the city manager, Ed Zerker, and say, you know, I know we've got some issues here, we've got some bad blood developing here, but here's what I want to do, and you got to stick with me? Did you ever have that conversation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We had numerous conversations in that fashion.
Did you feel that this was coming?
Mr. Zerker supports the union way. Mr. Zerker makes it very clear that he wants parity between the union and the police chief, and that just doesn't work.
If you're sitting out there and you're a taxpayer in the city of Phoenix, why is that a problem?
Anytime you use politics in relation to public safety issues or police crises, I'm telling you, that's a huge recipe for disaster.
You think some of this actually bleeds into the policing that goes on in the street?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Look, I've been policing for 36 years. There's a reason I was a police chief. The expertise that I brought into this organization, I'm very confident about. I'm very confident of the police work that I was able to do and to accomplish here, working with the men and women of the Phoenix Police Department.
Back with former Phoenix Police Chief Daniel Garcia. Back in a moment on Newsmaker Sunday. Back with former Police Chief Daniel Garcia, fired just 3.5 weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
Joe Clure was on this program when some of this started, and he's a nice guy. And he said, this guy's a dictator, he's a tyrant. What's your reaction to that?
That's just not true. And I don't like sports analogies, but let me give you one. Professional football coaches. The best teams you always see out there are teams that are run by coaches who give people a purpose, a principle, and a direction. And that's what I did with the Phoenix Police Department. Those were my goals. An organization has to know what the direction is. They have to know what their purpose is, and they have to understand the principles that guide them every single day. And I believe that analogy works very well in how I policed here. I wanted officers to understand that we had a mission to do every day and a purpose. And the issue of purpose is so strong in law enforcement.
I want to close with tape number 3, if we can. This battle over Prop 487. This got very ugly and personal in some corners. Your take on where we're going with unions, particularly, this dealt really with city workers,
right,
which are different, separate and apart from police and fire. I believe that to the core. I talked to lawyers about this. Nonetheless, fire ended up in the middle of this. Police, not as much. What is this all about?
Well, let me just go back to what you just pointed out there. I don't think police was involved in this thing because I don't think the police unions, both of them, have a good reputation with our community. For their bullying.
They kept their powder dry.
And I think they should have.
Why?
I don't think they would have had the
They didn't have
support.
a dog in the fight?
They didn't have the support of the citizens. I really don't think they have it. The fact is some of their tactics have been so aggressive that I think that they turn off some of the community. But the fact is this, the issue of a pension is an issue that's occurring all across the United States, and it's not going away.
And the taxpayers are on the hook for this stuff.
Yeah, they are.
And you believe police and fire eventually will have to come to the table to figure out what to do with these pensions.
You know what? Let me tell you something. The men and women of the Phoenix Police Department and the fire department, they do courageous work. And in my opinion, John, they deserve every penny they can get. They do unbelievable great work, but the issue is not going to go away. But it's not mine to solve.
Good luck. Danny Garcia,
my pleasure to be with you.
Our guest on Newsmaker Sunday. Best of luck to you. We'll see you next week.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and get all the best videos from Fox 10.